My name is Danny. I'm a student from Taylor's University. My student ID is 0370616. Currently, I'm in semester 1 for the course Diploma in Culinary Arts. This video will be for my assignment for Introduction to Pastry and Bakery. Said assignment being to take 2 recipes and put it into a fish recipe format. The recipe I'm going to be showing today will be the red matcha muffin or matcha red bean muffin. Yeah, that sounds better. The recipe itself is quite simple. You don't need anything fancy or advanced. Not a stand mixer, not a hand mixer, none of that. As long as you have a spatula, which is quite good, and a whisk, it should be fine. The recipe is split into 2 parts. The first is a crumble. We'll be using the crumble technique for that. And the second being the muffin itself, the muffin batter. And that will be the quick bake method. So first, we must start off with the crumble. As this crumble requires it to be chilled before we can actually use it. This crumble is quite simple. You only require 4 actual ingredients. That being flour, matcha powder, sugar, I'm using brown sugar, and butter. First, the flour. In here, there's about 25 grams of flour. Then next, matcha. This in here is 10 grams. And same thing, I'm gonna put it in. Next, sugar. The amount of sugar here is 20 grams. I'm using brown sugar. However, any kind of sugar should work fine. Now finally, the most important part, butter. Now this is where the first applied technique will be used, which is the crumbling technique. What we want is to make sure that the butter does not melt. So instead of using your palm, use your finger, as there is less heat there from your body. So just squeeze it around like you're playing with sand. As you can see, it's more darker now. And it's more like uniform. Now here is where you can use a palm. Just use a palm to put it together, squeeze them together. So once it's done, clean my hand up. It should look like this. It's not one whole dough, it's just miniature fans, like fans. However, now that you're done, you must transfer it into a container of baking sheet. My house don't really have that much baking sheet, so I'm using this metal tray. Put it in here. Then, yes, it should be something like this. You can now store it in the freezer and wait for it to harden a bit so you can play around with it more. Now, that's about it. Okay, next we'll be making the muffin batter. Before we actually start with the muffin batter, it's recommended to actually preheat your oven till 200 degrees Celsius. And then once it actually gets to that temperature, you should roast your almonds. This is just extra. What I will be actually using is this amount, which is 15 grams worth of almonds. To make muffin batter, there are 2 methods. One is creaming, and the other is wet and dry mix. Today, I'll be using a wet and dry mix method. This is also one applied technique, which is quick break making. You must first of course, measure your ingredients. I'll be using flour, baking soda and baking powder, matcha, sugar, red bean paste, almond as I showed earlier, milk, egg, oil. For the flour, earlier I did not mention it when I was doing crumble because it was not really that important. However, right now is where it's really important. Flour, soft flour, low protein flour. However, avoid using self-rising flour for this recipe specifically. If you were to use it, you must adjust the recipe accordingly. In here, 80 grams of low protein flour. I also already put in baking powder, around 3 grams or so, and baking soda, 1 gram. Matcha powder. In here, 15 grams. And that's my dry mix. Now is a wet mix. This egg, 1 grade A egg, milk, I put 50 grams, sugar, I put 60. And finally, oil, or any kind of fat to be honest. You can use butter, but I'm using canola oil. Amount 32 grams. Alright, so now just mix. Right now it's brown in color due to the brown sugar. However, if we were to use white sugar, it will just stay a bit pale yellow at most. Anyhow, dry mixture, wet mixture, and that fell. But one thing to note about muffins, we do not want it to have a lot of gluten. So instead of using a whisk, I'll be using a spatula. So put it in, just mix it around. It should be something like this. Fully mixed, no white bits. Now, red bean. In here, 100 grams or so. And that's what you want. Finally, almonds. Pour in and mix. And then voila. The batter is done. Now we can just start putting it into the mold and then bake it. This recipe, if done right, should give you 5 muffins. I'll put 30 grams of muffin batter first inside this, 15 grams of this in the middle, and then 40 to 50 grams above it to make a stuffed muffin, more or less. So if done right, you should be able to do 5. However, if done not right, 4.5. And I've not actually cut. Your oven should be preheated to 200 degrees Celsius. Just cook it for around 25 minutes. 25 minutes should be fine. It's been exactly 24 minutes. What you're looking for is when you poke it in, there should be no residue. It looks like right now, take out the toothpick and there is, put it in the middle. Is what I got.